everybody, and welcome to another episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast, your go-to source for the latest in industry trends and strategies to help you level up your M&A practice. I am your host, Nick Olsen, Managing Director of Cornerstone International Alliance, the only international alliance of M&A firms who focus on the lower middle market. Here, our platform, where I bring in a mastermind who's experienced, knowledgeable, and gracious enough to share their success and how they've navigated the world of M&A. And today's guest is no different. I'm extremely excited about today's guest. He hails from British Columbia, Canada, where he has over 25 years of experience in the conference and trade show business. He sold his own company in 2007 to a public U.S. company, started another business in 2015. He is a true strategist and has a knack for understanding the nuances of consumer behavior. He also prides himself in being a family man and a proud hockey dad. Please welcome President and co-founder of Q Business Media, Mark Stephenson. Mark, thank you for joining us today.
Nick, thanks for having me on. Excited about our conversation.
Yeah, as am I. And you and I met recently over the past couple of months, and it's going to really be the topic of today that we talk about, events and conferences and trade shows, and how this is a good strategy for M&A advisors to participate and attend these kind of events. And you host really great ones, which we'll dive into in a minute. But just want to understand from, what your experience is, in over 25 years in the events and trade show business industry. Just kind of talk about what that experience looked like and where that's brought you to fast forward to 2015, when you founded your current business.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nick. It's 20. I wish it was 25 years. I think it's 30 plus, but been around the industry for a bunch of years, and it's been a great run. I love my line is I love driving to work every day still, and I've been in so many different industries in terms of trade shows and conferences and what have you, and learned a lot. And it's the industry has evolved like every other industry, but it continues to bring buyers and sellers together. And, when you hear the success stories that come out of a conference, whether it's the Business Transitions Forum or another conference, there's so many great connections that are made in our industry. And that's what propels us going forward into the next event.
Awesome. And like I said, you had an amazing career you have an amazing career in the events industry. In 2015, you launched Q Business Media, which led to you and your business partner founding the Business Transition Forum. And a lot of things that you guys do as well. We'll get into the Business Transition Forum in a minute. But one other thing that you guys do very well is talk to entrepreneurs, business owners about. And what you get excited about is large-scale exit strategies. Why did that intrigue you enough to kind of help business owners with that, I guess, problem, for lack of a better term?
It's not easy. It's challenging, and we have had the great fortune of buying and selling businesses. As you referenced, we sold a large-scale business. Back in 2007, we sold it to a large public American company. And, we went through the process. It was a 9-month negotiation. We learned a lot. But ultimately, when we started Q Business Media a few years later in 2015, we started the Business Transitions Forum from a blank piece of paper, in fact. And it was started from the process we went through when we sold our business. And, I'll double down, Nick. It's not an easy thing to sell your business. It's kind of like selling your house. Everyone can sell their house, but to do a good job and get the true value from your company is not an easy thing.
What, from a planning perspective, just kind of digging into your experience when you sold your company back in 2007, did you feel like you were prepared for that exit, or were there things that you wish you would have done differently to better prepare yourself?
a few years back, as we referenced, there's not much we would have changed. And quite frankly, there was four partners, but we used key advisors, all of us. And that was likely the difference between having a great exit and an exit.
Mm-hmm.
And, if and when we sell this business that we have today, we've gone through the process. We would absolutely use advisors again, because they will make the difference for us. And that's not just saying that, Nick. We're smart people. We know our industry. But when we bring our team of advisors together, they make the difference on bringing different buyers together, elevating the hopeful sale process. There's so many things that these advisors help us with today to make us a better firm for tomorrow.
So if you hadn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but sounds like you guys were educated enough in what M&A advisory is when you sold your business. But, if you didn't know that and you tried to go at it alone, like how different, do you think that experience would have been? Like I said, you're very smart people, obviously run successful businesses, but M&A advisors exist for a reason, right?
Absolutely. And again, when we sell this business one day, we will use advisors, and we are connected to so many different deals based on the business transitions form that we'll talk about in a few minutes, Nick. But, I look at it as like selling your house. There's a lot of people that do, for sale by owner or try to do it for sale by owner. And generally it doesn't work out that well. But when you're selling your home, you're going to bring in the best agent, the best advisors to help you bring in the most potential buyers, maybe to drive up the price, but help you get your house ready for sale. And I look at selling your business in a very similar way. Again, we'll get into it when we start talking about the business transitions form, but when you go to sell your business, you still have a business to run.
Right.
And those advisors, quite frankly, are going to play the difference between a sale and a great sale. And it's hard to run a business today, regardless if you're thinking about selling. But those advisors will play a significant role in helping you get ready if you're selling your business.
And you hit on a good point. You're selling your business and you're still running your business. And we hear the horror stories of, business owner gets so much of their time is consumed in the sale of the business declines because they're not putting enough attention to it. And so you got to navigate that. And I think, that's why, using an M&A advisor to help with the sale allows that business owner to continue to be in the business, making sure that everything is either, staying status quo or improving instead of declining, because obviously that affects, the sale price that you might get or the multiple that you might get from your eventual buyer. And I think that that's important to know. And I'm, as advisors, educating your potential client on the fact that this is why we exist. You already have your full-time job. Why add a second full-time job on top of that, which you're not going to do either of them great. And so, getting that advisor early and helping with the process. And, in your example, when you guys sold, how far, but, you said that the process took about nine months, but before that 9-month period, when did you engage your advisor or advisors into starting to plan for that kind of go-to-market time frame through due diligence and close?
Yeah, probably 18 months. It was a process to get the company ready. There was obviously lots of discussions between the partners as to, where we were then and where we wanted to get to prior to sell, and, what we needed to do to get the business ready to maximize the opportunity. And, Nick, I think you touched on a great point. When you're selling your business and you're running a business, those are two difficult things at the best of times, and you don't want to do an average job on both. You're good at your business, stay focused on your business, bring in the right team to help you prep your business, get your business ready. There's lots of things that we need to do. to get our business ready to sell. It's not easy, and sometimes we need a kick in the pants for certain things that we need to do. Clean up the edges of our business.
Yeah.
Clean up the edges of our house before we sell it. It's so true. And there's always little things that we continue to push to the side that we know we have to get to. Those advisors are the ones that help us get those things ready.
Yeah.
To maximize the opportunity.
Right. And a lot of business owners, I mean, I think you're in somewhat of a unique situation where, you sold a company, you started another company, eventually you're going to sell the second company. A lot of these business owners, it's kind of a one-time deal where, you sell your company, especially at retirement age where you're looking to just kind of go off and do the next, phase of your life. But, going through something for the first one and only time is challenging in of itself, but try doing that without the right help behind you just seems like a daunting task. And so, looking at what you went through back in 2007, what you learned from that experience, what you've learned by putting on these great events, what will be different for you that'll probably even help you, have an even better exit with this current company, whenever that might be.
Nick, it's some of the things that we have spoken about already, but the one of the great things that we hear meeting all these entrepreneurs and business owners at our conferences is kind of the initial thought process about what's it going to take to sell my business. It's an eye opener, and the entrepreneurs, the business owners that are attending our conference, they're not all looking to sell tomorrow. They've had their head down for 15 years. Okay, I want to sell my business. Okay, I'll put the quarter in the machine and here we go. It's not like that. And we have some wonderful stories from some of those people that have attended our conference, and how they've helped finance their business, where they've met the right advisors. There's just so many things that we've learned from the people, the entrepreneurs attending our conference, about getting their business ready.
Yeah. Well, and I'm excited to hear some examples here, but let's take a step back and talk about Business Transition Forum. You guys started this conference back in, was it 2016, 2015?
2015 is the first Vancouver event, yes.
Yeah. And so you've established, kind of take us from where it started to where it is today, where you do multiple events across the entire country of Canada. Why did you guys start Business Transition Forum? What was the premise of it?
We've been in the business for, the industry for a long time, Nick, and in 2015, I mean, maybe an important story to share here is we sold in 2007, and as we all learn, all these deals are different. I had a 5-year agreement when I sold. We had a small portion of earnout that we obviously stuck around to collect, and we did. But I actually signed a second 5-year term, which is unheard of for a bunch of the advisors that are listening to this. They liked me, I liked them. I was a bit younger, my kids were a bit younger, but it made sense to continue to work with the company. They were very, very good to me, and we had a great relationship, and it doesn't always work out that way. But when we started, and then in 2015, I needed to spread my wings again. I needed to be an entrepreneur. And again, we started the Business Transitions Forum from a napkin, from a blank piece of paper. We already knew the conference business, and we were, pleasantly surprised is the term I use, that no one was doing a conference, a one-day high-level conference on exit strategy for business owners. We just went through it. We learned a lot. We know it's not easy. And we wanted to share that information with other business owners out there that are thinking about selling their business.
Yeah, I mean, probably a very untapped market, like you said. And, when you run and I'm interested to hear your response to this question, because there's so much confidentiality in our industry, right? Business owners typically don't want people to know they're selling, during the process. And, Do you find that as an issue, or I mean, you're creating this forum of a place for entrepreneurs to go to learn about exiting. I guess what do you hear about that? And obviously, you guys have been wildly successful with these events. Very highly attended, been doing it for many years. Is that an issue?
Yes, it's been an issue. It has come up a number of times, more so years ago than today. Maybe when we were first starting out, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
We have videographers and photographers at the conferences, and some of the entrepreneurs are concerned based on confidentiality that their photo was taken, and oh
Yeah.
my Lord, what's going to happen? My staff are going to see it. My
Mm-hmm.
competitors are going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a buyer like a private equity is going to see that I'm at a conference about selling a business. It doesn't come up as much as it today as it did back in 2015, 16 when we started, but we keep the information about the entrepreneurs confidential.
Mm-hmm.
There's great networking opportunities at the conferences. There's cocktail parties and so forth, to provide the advisors the opportunity to meet these entrepreneurs. Some don't concern themselves with confidentiality, but some still do. And coming out of COVID, one of the things that we did is we bolted on the growth strategy. So it's growth and transition.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons that we did that was to lower the bar of concern for some of the entrepreneurs that are concerned about exposing themselves that they're looking to sell. Maybe they're coming to the conference to learn about growth strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very, very helpful bolting on the growth element coming out of COVID to attract more entrepreneurs, business owners to our conferences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard stories within Cornerstone that that's been a tactic to get in front of more business owners. But you do hear the story of, well, it's hard to get a booth at an event like that, knowing that you're helping business owners sell their companies. Will they be willing to come up and talk to you? But it sounds like you guys have. I was going to ask the why do you think it's different from 15 to now, but it sounds like that growth strategy component to your conferences have been a big component to that. But any other reason why you think it might have changed?
My easy answer on that, Nick, is COVID maybe, and the pandemic, and people maybe think a little differently coming out of the pandemic, and maybe don't concern ourselves with some of the smaller things. And I'm not suggesting selling your business is a small thing, but once you're out in the open and you've gone through the first hurdle about getting ready to sell, it's not a bad thing. And listen, you might have a wonderful business, and there might be wonderful, a lot of buyers that are interested in your business, but it's okay. It's okay to let people know that you're thinking about selling. It doesn't mean you're selling tomorrow, but you're putting your thinking cap on, your boots on to go through the process of what it would take to sell the business. And some of the stories that we've experienced with those attending the conference that are thinking about selling their business are very, very helpful. And what we do, Nick, if we just get into the conference a little bit here, is woven through the day of the conference are those entrepreneurs speaking about their experiences, whether it's growth and or transition strategies. And when I talk about the exit strategies that are shared at the conference, it's not all the the glorious ones about I sold for $100 or $200 million and I live on a sailboat and I travel around the world and all these things. We actually are fortunate to get some of those entrepreneurs to share some of the tougher stories.
Yeah.
I thought my business was worth $75 million, and I ultimately got 25 or 30 for it based on this, and this. It's a learning point. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do with the Business Transitions Forum, is share stories from those that have gone through it, good, bad, indifferent. And we've got lots.
Right. That's a great way. So you'll have former clients or former business owners who sold their companies come in and just share firsthand experiences with the attendees.
Yeah, and some of them are fireside chats.
Okay.
Some of them are a rear view mirror, looking back. What did I learn? And again, that is, some key information for those speakers, those entrepreneurs that have gone through the process to share with our audience. Listen, we've bought and sold businesses. We still learn a bunch at each and every one of these conferences, and it's hard, it's exciting, but it's very, very helpful. And when we get an entrepreneur coming to us post conference and say, "Wow, I didn't realize what I need to do to get my house in order to sell," it's rewarding. It truly is rewarding. And we've had people attend our first conferences. Our first conference in Toronto, and that person was coming to meet someone to get some financing for their business. They met someone, they got some financing. The next year, we heard that their business had grown based on the financing. 2 years later, they were a speaker at the conference talking about their growth strategies. Lo and behold, we had that person on our advisory board, because we do have an advisory board. We're smart people, but we want to learn what's going on in the industry and maybe to tap into some of those speakers. But ultimately, we had that person go through a 5 or 6 year cycle with us. And he spoke at one of our recent conferences about the selling process. He sold his business. He was a speaker. He shared with the audience his history of meeting someone at the conference, getting some financing, learning some of the things that he needed to do to get his house in order, but ultimately having a successful exit. We hear those stories all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's why you do it, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned before a business owner getting over that first hurdle to selling their company. In your experience with the people you've talked to, with the attendees that you see at your events, typically what does that first 1 or 2 hurdles look like to get in your experience, to get the mindset of, okay, I want to eventually sell my company. What do I need to do now? Like, what are you hearing people say?
I mean, it's such a wide array of things that we as entrepreneurs need to do to get our business ready. Again, we've had some experience learning, and so we've got a head start, Nick, in our business to get it ready the next time we sell a business. But
Right.
I referenced a kick in the pants, and it's part of that is really, okay, we're ready to sell. What does that mean? And it's a long discussion, and we all think we know more than we do, in fact, and we do know our businesses, but we don't necessarily know all the intricacies of what is required to sell a business. I mean, you asked me, you made a reference earlier about multiples, and what are multiples? The language that's used,
Right.
A glossary of terms we share at our conferences for some of those entrepreneurs to learn, earnouts and working capital and all the different terms that are used when you're going through an exit. It's daunting. It's not easy, but I can tell you, I've learned so much. I learned so much when we went through the process, but I continue to learn all these different elements that will help us be more successful when we ultimately exit this business. We're not selling tomorrow, Nick. We're not selling tomorrow. But I can tell you that we have our house in order to a certain extent today. So we're ready for that tap on the shoulder.
Yeah. And right, it's never too early, right?
It's never too early. And we ask questions of those entrepreneurs that are coming to our conference. What is their transition horizon? It's a very, very open question. A lot of people are a year to 2 years, but the biggest group of entrepreneurs, business owners that are attending our conferences are thinking about a transition horizon of 2 to 5 years. And that might be a little bit shorter today coming out of COVID. Maybe they didn't enjoy COVID. Maybe they did very well during COVID. And God forbid, I don't want to talk about the pandemic anymore. But I think it shortened the cycle a little bit in terms of the transition horizon. But if it's 2 to 4 years per se, those are people thinking about what it's going to take, and they're learning more and more as time goes on how much time it's going to take to think about their business. And, we haven't talked about growth, and grow before you go. Maybe we're a great example of that. We're in a massive growth phase, Nick, and all the different verticals that we're involved in. But we are certainly looking to grow before we go with this current business.
Right. And even using that example, and, that's never too early. And, as, an M&A advisor's, coming from an M&A advisor's perspective, a 2 to 5 year horizon is in a lot of cases ideal. Obviously, you want to help the business owner sell whenever that may be, but a lot of times, from an advisor perspective, you get into the conversation a little too late. And then if you can get in with a business owner or the trusted advisor of a business owner and develop that rapport relationship early on, 2 to 5 years out, there's a lot of good you can do with that business owner to get them in the best possible scenario to sell their company, because you never know what's going to happen, right? And if you're ready to go, that's obviously great. But if you can even maximize that even more, just because you're getting your house in order, 3 to 5 years in advance, and I would imagine, from what you've learned, that's probably, somewhat of an ideal timeline.
Preparation is key. If you start the process, it doesn't mean you have to finish the process, Nick. A lot of people get to the finish line and, don't sell. I mean, no one's forcing you to sell, and that's maybe the best seat to be in, is you're not in a position where you have to sell. And but you have to learn that. You have to learn that, but you also have to, like you said, have that checklist. Have that checklist ready as to what you need to do to maximize the opportunity. And again, probably the biggest takeaway I can share is, taking your hands off the wheel of running your business today and selling your business. You can't do both well. And so you need to surround yourself with the right advisors to help you maximize the opportunity while you continue to grow and run your business day in, day out.
Yeah. And so back to your events. So it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, you really have two kind of audiences. If you have, chime in if you have more than that, but the entrepreneur and then maybe the intermediary, the advisor. Why would a business owner, two-part question, why would a business owner attend, and why would an M&A advisor attend?
Business owner first would be they attend to learn firsthand and with some stories, good, bad, and different, what is required to sell a business. And secondly, it's going to give you that initial start to begin the process. And a lot of our attendees are attending for that very reason. I've got to get going. I need to better understand what the first step, third, sixth step are. And so that's key. From an advisor standpoint, I mean, maybe I'll just sort of circle back a little bit. We've experienced businesses that are in the $15 to $20 million range. We certainly, enterprise value. We certainly have companies that are sub 10, but we also have the 25s, 50s, 100s to sort of get to that sweet spot of 15 to 20. Those are the types of businesses, all walks of life, all different industries that are attending the conference. From an advisor standpoint, Nick, they're attending for ultimately to meet entrepreneurs, business owners that will one day think about selling their business. So they want to make those initial connections because, as we've just discussed, we do require those advisors to make us better, to be more prepared for when we get to that finish line. It's daunting. It's very difficult. I actually sometimes refer to it as painting your house. It's easy to paint your house.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do a good job painting your house.
Yeah.
And the same holds true for selling a business. Look, I could sell this business tomorrow, but I know I'll be more successful as I go through the checklist, as I bring in the right advisors. And when I say advisors, that's not just an investment banker. That's not just an accountant. That's not just your corporate lawyer. You need to have the right team around you to be ready to answer the questions, to get your business ready to sell.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And as advisors, what better forum to to get in front of is a whole room full of entrepreneurs, right? We love to, that's where we want to be. We want to be, whether it's in person or digitally, we want to find the business owner when they're looking to sell or thinking about it, a year to 5 years out. And what better way to do that than at an event like this? And so, you guys have had lots of success with your forums in Canada, and we recently talked about your opportunity that you're now bringing the Business Transition Forum to the United States in 2024. I guess first question, why bring that to the U.S. And what are your thought process around that?
Going down to the U.S. is like we talked about earlier, Nick. We're in growth phase, and one day we will sell this business, but we saw an opportunity to go down south. And when we did our research, we don't necessarily go into the larger markets like New York or in LA. We actually look for secondary markets.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those larger markets are great. They're big, they're exciting, they're noisy, but they're noisy. And we've had some great success going into secondary markets, and I would consider Vancouver out my window here a secondary market. All these cities that we produce in Canada
Mm-hmm.
are very, very good. But when we did our research, we were looking at secondary markets, and San Diego was jumping off the map. So we have San Diego in September this year, and then followed by Denver in March of 2025. We think it's a natural area of growth for us. When we sold the last business, we identified growth opportunities. And that's what we've done here is we've identified growth opportunities and excited to take the business transitions forum southbound.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your first U.S. event. Like you said, it's going to be in San Diego. It's going to be this fall. Any information that you can provide our listeners, kind of a sneak peek into what they can expect and where they can find more information?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, businesstransitionsforum.com. It'll show the menu of all of our BTF conferences, Business Transitions Forum. We've just put together an advisory board, and I'm meeting with the advisory board in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and we're looking to talk about the industry. We're looking to talk about some potential speakers for the conference that is taking place at the Westin in San Diego, Gaslamp Quarter. I've been down there a few times. It's a wonderful venue. We're a higher end conference. There's no hiding behind that. We're looking to attract those entrepreneurs that are, have great value in their business. And we're looking forward to San Diego. We're looking forward to Denver, and then we'll see where we go from there. But certainly, doing business in the U.S. is very, very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the model that you built up in the Canadian market, makes a ton of sense, and seems like a great opportunity for M&A advisors to meet business owners and talk about growth, talk about planning and all that sort of great stuff. But from more of an industry perspective on your end, events and conferences and things like that, why would it be beneficial, in your opinion, for M&A advisors to utilize these kind of events as a strategy for business development to meet more buyers? Like, why is this a good option for them?
Yeah, great question. We get asked it all the time. In fact, we're a little different, and there's a lot of wonderful conferences out there, Nick, that are for advisors. There's a lot that have been around for many, many years in Canada and the US, but we're a little different in that, we attract the business owner to our event. And there's not many conferences, certainly there's none in Canada. I'm not sure of any ones similar to what we do in the US that attract those entrepreneurs to a conference to help them with their plans to sell their business. And, M&A advisors, we work with lots in Canada and certainly in the US. It's important for them to meet entrepreneurs today that might be thinking about transition tomorrow. So it's we're biased, but it's a great event, and we've got some proven success that we've attracted buyers and sellers. We've attracted entrepreneurs. We've attracted a great group of advisors, and we'll use the word sponsors as well. Our retention rate with our sponsors up in Canada is 90% plus year after year. Many of them are national, many are regional, some are local. But we're very proud of the fact that 90% plus of our sponsors continue to come back year after year to meet entrepreneurs that are thinking about growth and exit strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned, I was going to ask this question, you mentioned just the geography of an event and who's attending. You said there's national attendees, sponsors, there's regional, there's local. An advisor who maybe not in the San Diego market per se, obviously, it's going to be still beneficial for them to attend if they're coming outside of the San Diego market. Am I correct in saying that?
100%. And, it's going to circle back, Nick, to one of the things that we talked about earlier is we'll market, for the San Diego event, we'll market to California per se. But that doesn't mean, someone from Oregon State, may or may not attend.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about confidentiality. And sometimes, one of the things that we've experienced in Canada is someone from Toronto an entrepreneur from Toronto may not want to expose themselves to the Ontario marketplace and may fly out to Calgary or Halifax or Vancouver to learn more about what they need to do to get their business ready to sell. So, yeah, we're attracting from the California marketplace for the San Diego event, but that doesn't mean that, entrepreneurs wouldn't attend from elsewhere, whether outside of California, Eastern US, what have you. And that same would hold true to a certain extent. It's not just advisors, service providers from the San Diego area. Mm-hmm. We're attracting those from all over California. Again, maybe they're regional, maybe they're national, but mm-hmm. the opportunity to meet, future customers there.
Mm-hmm. So other than, how can an M&A advisor get involved in this event, in your events? Obviously they can attend, but what other opportunities might you have for them to potentially participate more in the event?
Well, there's lots of information, Nick, on our site. Again, businesstransitionsforum.com. Okay. Full menus there for all 7 BTF events. And there's lots of information on there about why attend, reasons to attend. In fact, registration's open for our September event. Our slew of events start in 3 weeks. We're in conference season, as you can imagine. It's busy, but there's lots of information on the site about attending. Like most conferences, if you buy early, you pay less. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of information. In fact, our draft program, Nick, is on the website, the San Diego website right now, so you can learn about the content, the mm-hmm. type of discussion, the type of presentations that will be available for the September event.
Okay. That's great. Anything else you want our listeners to know about the event other than go to businesstransitionforum.com to learn more about the Canadian events, your new events in the US? I think it's awesome. Best of luck during conference season. Anything else you want to add, Mark?
Nick, no, I think we've had a great chat today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience, but we're just excited to help both entrepreneurs and advisors on this very important step of selling your business. It's not easy. And again, we've had the opportunity to go through it, buying and selling. We've sold, but we've also bought businesses, mm-hmm. and we apply some of the same principles when buying a business. And, one of the things we talked about earlier is grow before you go. And that's the process that we're in right now with this business. Mm-hmm. So it's exciting to apply a lot of those things that we learn at our conferences, the BTF conferences, to our everyday business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mark, it's a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together. Thank you for being on our show. That's all we have for today's episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast. One thing that would really help Mark and myself out is to like, listen, and comment and share this episode and forward it on to anybody who you think could benefit from the content of our conversation today. Check out all of our episodes at cornerstoneia.com/podcast. Hopefully this conversation was beneficial and you had a couple of takeaways. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, everybody, take care.